We're going to start with our guy, the fight analyst, second video. He joined us last week, new to the Low Bag family, and we're excited to have him. We're going to hear his play of the day in UFC 238 in Chi-Town, in Chuuk. Hopefully, it matches up with our guy Animarak, because what we've seen is when we've got experts, multiple experts on the same show, and they're both on the play without talking to each other, that play hits at a very high percentage. Well, let's get it started. Rafa, my guy, here we go. Straight from Miami, Florida, the fight analyst.
What's up, everyone? It's the fight analyst here. Unfortunately, we're coming off a pretty underwhelming card at UFC Stockholm. You know, you win some, you lose some, but that doesn't mean we can't get right back into it, especially this weekend at UFC 238. It's a massive fight card we got going on this weekend. In the main event, we have the Bantamweight Championship on the line with Henry Cejudo trying to become another double champ in the UFC, taking on Magic Marlon Moraes. And for my best bet on the night, it's actually going to be in the headliner. I'm looking to take Magic Marlon Moraes at -120 on 5 dimes against Henry Cejudo. Well, in this one, we have Henry moving up in a weight class. He's going from 125 as a 125-pound champ, thinking he can come up to 135 pounds and just do the same thing that he did to TJ Dillashaw, which a lot of people did not see coming, including myself. I was on the other end and thought TJ was going to be invincible, thought he was going to come down and just take care of business, but that wasn't the case. Henry looked fantastic. He came in there with a great game plan, blitzed TJ, and took him out fairly quick, fairly easily. But that's not going to happen here. Moraes is a different animal. He's massive. He's the bigger fighter. He's got the bigger reach. He's got more muscle mass. He's the more complete fighter. His arsenal of strikes is insane. It's the best that Cejudo has faced, next to Demetrius Johnson, who gave him a ton of problems on the feet. And if he had a ton of problems on the feet against DJ, he's going to have a ton of problems on the feet against Moraes. Moraes is technically the Edson Barbosa of the bantamweight division. I mean, technically, that's because he's trained with them since he was 16 years old. Moraes, his kicks are lethal. I mean, he's coming off 3 knockout wins against 3 top 5 contenders at the bantamweight division. He took out Rafael Assunção. He took out Aljamain Sterling. He took out Jimmy Rivera. Assunção hasn't been finished since 2011. Aljo has never been finished. And Jimmy Rivera was coming off a 25 win streak, and he's never been finished. So this is not going to be an easy fight for Cejudo by any means.
There is our guy, the fight analyst. He breaks down this fight in a beautiful 6.5-minute video. I'm going to send the link right here. If you guys want to see the whole fight analyst video, there it is. And he breaks it down in 6.5 minutes. I can't wait to hear what our next guest has to say about the fight analyst play of the day. But I know we're going to lead into that, because that is the big fight on the card. Let's welcome in our MMA expert, Animarak, on this Thursday afternoon. Coming to you live from Phoenix, Arizona. How you doing today, my guy?
I'm doing great, Jimmy. I'm pumped. I cannot wait. I cannot explain to you just how excited I am for UFC 238. This card is stacked, and there's so much betting value on it. I can't wait. I'm ready to sink my teeth in. Let's go.
Well, Grim Reaper is on tie Tuivasa. Pedro and agrees, says Marlon will finish Cejudo. Now, I don't want you to get to that until the very end. I want to take our time and roll into what we're going to talk about. But let's start with the setting. Chicago, Chuuk. How does that affect things?
Well, if you don't know, Chicago is most well known for hot dogs, deep dish pizza, Polish street jazz, and Al Capone. So we got some killers already in town. I think that's going to be pretty fitting for the UFC rolling in.
It's going to be exciting. This is a huge card, and I've got your picks right here. I'm going to pull up the market moves, and let's get right after it right now. Here we go. Fighting. This is all the moves that you got to keep the market open all day long, and that's what I do. I'm at sportsbookreview.com, and I just opened up the fight page. All right, let's start with Joe Calderwood up against Caitlin Chuuk. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Joanne Calderwood opens at -120. There has been a 10-cent move to Caitlin. How do you see this fight banging out?
Man, JoJo is the dark horse of the division. They never give my girl respect, and I've cashed out on her in her last 3 fights in a row. She is impressive, and people just don't want to give her that kind of credit. She's fighting Caitlin Chuuk, who's a one-dimensional fighter who can't get the takedown. She's going to have the ground advantage. She's going to have the striking advantage, and I think she's playing out meaner. On top of that, she's got an adorable Irish accent, and my wife hates it because I've got a crush on this girl. We're rolling with JoJo.
We're rolling with JoJo. That is the first fight on Animarak's list. The next up is the Darren Stewart, Bevan Lewis fight. Darren Stewart opening up at +195. There's been a 45-cent move towards Lewis. Stewart, Lewis, who do you like here?
You know what? I'm all over Bevan Lewis in this spot. He is a massive favorite, though. I'm taking a slightly different angle on it. We actually faded Lewis in his first UFC fight against Uriah Hall. I was one of the few people who I know actually on that one. Hall came through as, I think, a +190 underdog. KO'd him when Lewis slowed down in round 3. Lewis is one of these young, smart, up-and-coming fighters. He's not going to make that same mistake, and his opponent, Stewart, is not the caliber of Uriah Hall. But I'm not going to lay -230, -250 with a kid who just gassed out in round 3 and got clipped because of it against a guy who goes by the fight name of the Dentist. They call him that because he knocks people's teeth out. Everybody is scared to strike with this dude. Now, Lewis has some wrestling credentials, but we've never seen them in the octagon. I'm actually going to play the prop on this one. You can get Bevan Lewis by decision at +190, and that is where the value is, in my opinion. Stewart's never been knocked out. He's only been submitted, and he's only lost decisions. We're turning a -200 favorite into a +200 dog.
Wow, I like that look, and my voice just broke just to show how much I like it. Everybody loving the JoJo spot, too. Fight analysts backing it, Chip Plylar backing it, saying JoJo is stealing. The next up is Lewis by decision. Next up, Angela Hill. Angela Hill opening up at +144. And there's been a 6-cent move away from her towards the favorite. How do you like this bout?
Now, if you've been watching this line move, it's been nuts. Yan got all the way up to -210 at one point and then swung back down to about -130. I mean, it's been an absolute roller coaster of a line on this fight. I'm on Yan personally. I think she's a phenom. Angela Hill is another one of these one-dimensional fighters. She's rangy. She's tough. If she can secure the takedown, she might be able to grind out a win here. But Yan is constant forward pressure at all times, and this is a short turnaround for Angela Hill, so I don't think she's going to have the cardio that we usually tend to see, and she has a history of gassing out herself even on a full training camp. I think Yan walks her down and wins a relatively simple 3-round decision.
We are backing Yan. Let's move on to the next stop. Calvin Catar, Ricardo Lamas. Catar opening at -150. There's been a 5-cent move towards the underdog, Ricardo Lamas. What do you like here?
When I first saw this fight, I thought I was going to be on Lamas. You guys know I love my dogs. I'm all over the underdogs in mixed martial arts. But Lamas is 37 years old. He's been a perennial contender, and he's gotten caught a couple of times. He's got a well-rounded skill set, but he's going to be a lot smaller in this fight. And Calvin Catar has had some very, very impressive stand-up fights in his last 3 UFC outings. I'm so high on this kid after going back and watching tape. He's going to have the height and the reach advantage. And Lamas, while he's dangerous if this fight hits the ground, I don't think he can get it there. He's not much of a wrestler. So being able to actually secure the takedown and then get it to the ground and then get the submission, I don't really see happening. He's also been knocked out. And as you get older, that happens easier and easier. I think we're getting a short price on a young up-and-comer who might be a top 5er in the very near future. I'm on Catar.
Wow. Okay, backing it. I like it. Let's keep rolling here. We are moving on to this fight here. Alexa Grasso versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Kowalkiewicz opening as a -155 favorite. A 40-cent move towards Alexa Grasso. What do you think of that move, and who are you taking here?
Well, first off, that move came because she put out an Instagram post thanking her fans and thanking everyone for the journey for the past 7 years. Everyone thinks she's retiring. Jimmy, she's not retiring. I found a video of her doing an interview from her home country. So it's not in English, but it was subtitled. And she talks about wanting to get back on the horse, and she wants to fight at least 3 more times before the end of 2019. I think that big line move came in because they think that the UFC has a young up-and-coming fighter here who's going to springboard off a potentially shot and retiring older star. And I just don't think that that is the case. Now, while I do like Grasso, I think she's got some upside. We're now getting the favorite at a pick'em price. And since her mind is not where all those people betting Grasso thinks it is, she's locked in. She's on a 2-fight losing streak. I think she bounces back here. She's the more well-rounded fighter. She's the better striker. The only thing I want to caution everybody on is when you've got a young up-and-coming fighter, they can improve drastically. But we're getting a pick'em. I'm going to take the elder statesman at a pick'em price in this case.
Wow, interesting.
Carolina.
Look. Yeah, I like the look on Carolina. I like the look. Very interesting breakdown. All right, now let's move on to Ty. Let's get these odds up right here. Blagoy Ivanov against Ty Tuivasa. Ivanov opening up at plus 123, excuse me. There's been a 9-cent move on him. He's now at plus 12. Are you backing Ivanov?
No, I will not be backing Ivanov. I do not like Ivanov at all. He's actually got a really cool personal story outside the cage, but as a fighter, I'm not impressed. He's slow. He's plodding. He's got a very old school style that just doesn't work in MMA these days. And his last win was gifted to him by the judges. I was on Big Ben Rothwell, and we got robbed that night. Big Ben beat him pillar to post, and I don't know what those judges were looking at. So he should be 0-2 in the UFC, not 1-1. Now, Tai Tuivasa, on the other hand, he's a young up-and-comer with a very impressive set of skills. He's got great footwork. He's got power in both of his hands, and he was well on his way to defeating Junior Dos Santos, who's the former UFC heavyweight champion and looks like he's knocking on the door for another title shot with a career resurgence. Now, he had busted up Junior Dos Santos for about a round and a half, completely crippled his leg, slowed his movement down, and then he got over-aggressive. He really wanted to put the legend away, and he took a bad angle, and JDS caught him. When he got clipped with that punch, he didn't go out. He just got knocked down. JDS got on top of him, and he could not get out of that spot on the ground. So he does have a weakness on the floor. But if he comes in and he makes the right adjustments, which younger, up-and-coming fighters with good camps do, he should pick Blagoy Ivanov apart for 3 rounds because he's the faster, harder-hitting fighter, and he's the more technical fighter with more weapons. I like Tai Tuivasa.
We got Ty. We are backing Ty here. Let's move on to the next bout, and we have a big favorite, Peter Yan, going up against Jimmy Rivera. Yan opening up at minus 310. He's now at minus 325, 15-cent move towards him. What are you doing with this bout?
You know what? This is another one where we're going to turn a huge favorite into a dog. We're not going to risk a parlay. We're not going to lay all that wood. I'm going to take Peter Yan inside the distance. This kid is a murderer. He goes by the fight name of No Mercy, and it's the most appropriate UFC fighter's name I think I've ever seen. He wants to rip absolutely everybody's head off, and he moved out to Tiger Muay Thai before this camp. I've been seeing videos on Instagram and on Twitter of him hitting pads and doing work. If it's possible, he's even more explosive coming into this camp. I think he's going to completely roll here. And the kind of pressure that he puts on his opponents, his whole game plan is to break his opponents. And I don't think that he's going to get to the judges' scorecards in this fight. I'm looking at a 2nd or a 3rd round finish. We can get him plus 160 inside the distance. Instead of laying 3.5, 4 units or risking a parlay on someone slipping on a banana peel, I'm going to play 1 unit and get plus 160 on it instead.
Interesting. Fight analyst liking him too says, but via unanimous decision. And Mr. Fat Fist saying yawn, but line's too big. Wow. And Mr. Fat Fist says, I can see going all 3. Wow. Very, very interesting. There's our guy, Chris Postal. I love it. Okay, let's keep rolling along and see what's next up on the docket for our guy, Animarak. Sorry, I got too many things open here. Way too many things open. Here, let me go. Okay, next up, we come to the main event. Oh, no, sorry, this is Ferguson Cerrone. Sorry, Ferguson Cerrone. Is it a co-main event?
Actually, surprisingly enough, this is the 3rd fight down. We've got a double headliner on this one with 2 title fights. So even though Ferguson Cerrone should be the headliner of any other UFC card, they're number 3 on this one.
Wow. Okay, let's hear what you have to say about Ferguson Cerrone.
Well, you all know very well my history with Cerrone. That fucker hates me. I don't know what it is, but every single time he gets in the cage, I don't know how to pick his fights. I bet on him, he loses. I bet against him because of all the reasons I've listed a million times. He comes through, and he has made me do the walk of shame more than any other fighter on the planet. So I'm taking the angle on this one of simply playing that the fight does not go to decision at -115. Ferguson is coming in hungry to prove that he is still the legitimate title holder at 155. He's had some chin issues and gets hurt in basically every fight. Donald Cerrone has cranked it up a notch, and he somehow unbelievably is wrecking basically everybody he fights at the very end of his career. He also has had weakness issues to the body. The kind of output that these two guys can put on, I'm just going to bet that they kill each other and the fight doesn't go to decision, and Cerrone ain't getting a piece of this ass this weekend.
I hope not. I hope not. We don't want another walk of shame.
Watch. Cerrone's going to win by decision.
Yeah. All right, I love it. And then we get to the main event, and I can't wait to hear you talk about this after seeing the fight analyst video. How are you handling it, and what do you think about what the fight analyst thinks?
We're going head-to-head, baby. I'm head-to-head with the fight analyst. I'm on Henry Cejudo. I am a believer, and I don't know what this guy's got to do to get people behind him. He came up as an Olympic gold wrestler, and he took his first shot at the greatest of all time and got dropped back down the ladder. He rebounded in about 2.5, 3 years, and he dethroned the greatest fighter that we may have ever seen. Demetrius Johnson was on an unprecedented, I think, 10-year undefeated streak. He's the only champion 125 pounds has ever had. And Henry Cejudo, in a very short amount of time, putting his insane level of athleticism to use, dethroned him. Not only that, TJ Dillashaw, who looked like he was going to be the reigning champion for God knows how long, on EPO, which is a performance-enhancing drug and a banned substance, drops down to face him, and he KOs him flat in the first round. And everyone's telling me that Cejudo's got no shot against Moraes. I don't get it. This guy proves everybody wrong at every turn. And the proof's in the pudding. Marlon Moraes may be on this crazy streak of flash knocking people out in under a minute. And while all of those feats are impressive, I'm not discounting any of those. Just before that, he had a fight with John Dodson. John Dodson is relatively shot at this point in his career, but he had a speed advantage over Marlon Moraes, and he tagged Marlon up. The speed and the threat of the wrestling made it where Marlon Moraes was not able to pull the trigger on those gigantic shots that he usually does. Cejudo is going to do the same thing, and he is a better wrestler than John Dodson. He is faster than John Dodson, and he hits harder than John Dodson. I think Cejudo is one of the smartest game planners in the entire UFC. They're going to come in ready, and I don't think Moraes is going to have the ability to get comfortable enough to land that KO shot. Now, obviously, these are the two kinds of fighters that can put literally anybody away in under a minute, so we could be wrong here, but I'd rather roll the dice on the underdog. Not only that, I'm going to unzip my pants and put my nuts on this table. I'm taking Henry Cejudo inside the distance at plus 320.
Wow. Wow. Please pull your nuts out onto the table as soon as you're done this video. No, he's doing Animarak, wow. Cejudo inside the distance at plus 320. Wow. So that's the biggest line that you are on. Cejudo inside the distance at plus 320. Wow. People on either side. Sportsbook said Cejudo being the dog is a joke. Wow, Robbie Tagalo, I'm on Cejudo at the dog price. Wow, great stuff, Animarak. Thank you so much for joining us. Beautiful breakdown. I absolutely love it. Mr. Fatfish says, wow, ballsy. Let's not talk too much about the balls. But impressive stuff. Clint, sorry, I'm looking at Maximus 3D. Clint, where can we find you on Twitter, and tell us a little bit about your podcast?
I'm at Maximus in 3D on Twitter. The Die Hard MMA podcast, that's at Die Hard MMA Pod on Twitter and Instagram. I break down all these fights in way more depth. If you want to go listen, I've got about an hour and 20 minutes worth breaking down UFC 238 this week. Just to let you know, two things, Jimmy. Number one, Tai Tuivasa, he's your kind of guy. Every time he gets done with a fight, win or lose, he does a shoey where he cracks open a beer and dumps it in the shoe of a fan at the UFC card and then chugs it right there on camera. So check him out.
Shoot.
And then one note on Henry Cejudo, his last 4 fights in a row, yours truly has been on him. One of those was a plus 300 win against Demetrius Johnson, and I cashed at plus 250 with him inside the distance when he wrecked TJ Dillashaw as well. So I'm not getting off this train. Love you guys. Best of luck, everybody. Thanks for the support. We got 9 UFC picks. I'm ready for a big night. Let's go.
Oh, I love it. There is our guy, Animarak, from the Die Hard MMA podcast.